Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. Today we have a very special person with us, Mr. Subhadeep Chakrabarti. Right. When I talk about his experience, so he has completed his MBA from IIM Ranchi. Other than that, he is currently working with Exigo as a senior manager growth. Right. Other than that, he has earlier worked with Find as a growth manager. I believe these terms are already good enough to talk about his credibility, right? We won't waste much of the time now. Sir, the mic is all open. Anything that you would like to say about yourself, then we can just begin with the podcast.
First of all, Manish, thanks for inviting me on this podcast. Actually, this is my first podcast that I'm doing. So I hope that it will go really well for both of us.
Right.
In terms of my credentials, I think you have covered most of it. I started my career with Fresh to Home as a assistant manager in digital marketing, and then I went on to work in Find as a growth manager. And Find now currently I'm working at Exigo, like India's leading OTA platform, which sells flight, hotels, trains, and bus bookings, and many other travel products. And I'm working there as a senior growth manager. And I completed my MBA in marketing from IIM Ranchi in 2019. So it's been almost 5 years that I completed in a growth profile. So been enjoying that. Still have more work to do.
Yeah, totally understand. And it's a very interesting profile as well because there is a lot to implement, there is a lot to learn, right? While implementing, and there is a lot to strategize, right? So this job is always appealing, right? So students who are watching this video as of now, I'll tell you because this podcast won't be conventional, right? Because we have a very good question set, we have a very amazing person with us, right? So we'll be discussing marketing, brand marketing, growth marketing in depth, right? So we'll just begin with the podcast, sir. In the beginning, we would just like to know that how has your story been till this point, starting from your college life till the point you have achieved till this achieved now, right?
Growth, consistency, idea, reality. It all begins at one point. Here. Want to know how the industry works or how to build yourself? Learn from experienced people from the industry. Subscribe to know more.
So I'll start from my college. When I was studying, doing my MBA, I'm Russell. So at that time, like I had no particular thought in mind that I would go into probably this profile or that profile. I didn't have any clear demarcation in my mind. Because we were taught all these subjects: finance, consulting, marketing, HR, operations. So all the subjects were there. So I was just exploring that, which kind of subject basically allures more to me, right? If it was like I found certain kind of interest in finance, operations, there were some subjects that I found interesting. So that's how like I looked at my MBA, and then be call it luck or be it hard work, I got this profile of digital marketing, which I almost got into accidentally, right? Because I like just like any other fresher doing MBA, so we mostly get into sales profile, like because that's the only profile that majorly accepts freshers or people with 1 to 2 years of experience, right? So I thought that sales is the go-to role for me. But then, as luck would have it, I went into digital marketing with whatsoever no experience about it. I just had some theoretical knowledge about it, whatever I could, read or research online. But then gradually I started working in digital marketing. Like I found it more interesting, and this is a very unique field, more unique than any other, kind of line of work, because in digital marketing it's like there's a lot of need for creativity,
Right.
and as well as you touch upon you impact the business directly, right? Because your KPIs are directly tied to the business growth. It's majorly the sales, average order value, or the number of customers that you are bringing, that are defined as your KPI in digital marketing. So that way you have a direct impact on the business. Right? That is always good for your career as well as a business. It works well for both. And also, I would say that if you are someone who is like lazy but who is a lot creative thinker, right?
Hmm.
So digital marketing is the best profile for me, and especially in me being an engineer also. So most of us are like lazy but creative, right?
Uh,
So this profile completely works out for me. So that's how I got into it, and then I got to know about the growth profile. Like now, growth marketing is slightly different than normal conventional marketing, or rather digital marketing. Right? Many people nowadays work in e-commerce companies and in growth profile, and most people almost confuse growth marketing with digital marketing, right? But the two are different. Growth marketing can someone be someone who is working in, let's say, FMCG company, right? In a sales profile, he or she is also doing growth for the company,
hmm.
or rather, SaaS product company, right?
Hmm.
If someone is working in a growth profile, then they're also called growth managers, right? So growth is done by anyone. Like it's not just restricted to digital marketing. It's a very broader work profile, similar to product manager. Like all these profiles came about into being like very recently in the last 5 6 years. They're
Right,
being
right,
talked about.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm finding more like interest in that. So
Understood.
let's see.
Hmm. And that's an interesting overview how you accidentally like this
Yeah.
profile aligned with your career, right? And now you're working at such good roles, right?
Yeah.
Definitely there is a lot to learn, and definitely we'll gain a lot of insights in this podcast itself, right? So moving on to the major part of the podcast now, right? So like how do you think your career would have evolved if digital marketing hadn't become the powerhouse it is today, right? Because you mentioned already that sales would have been something that like you were looking forward to, right, as a fresher.
Yeah.
But what alternative paths might you have taken?
That's quite an interesting question. Like I sometimes find myself thinking about it, that if not digital marketing, then what else? Probably I could have gone into consulting, because I always believe that
Hmm.
having a holistic approach to doing a business, that is very important. It's not just that you're an. I don't like to think of myself just as a professional who is executing stuff, like someone who is just into marketing for the sake of marketing.
Hmm.
You have to be like a holistic, a well-rounded individual to
Hmm.
work in a company, because then that's how you get into the leadership position.
Hmm.
A business leader is someone like who has a certain set of good there's a certain line of business that he or she has a very much experience in,
Hmm.
and there are other broader spectrums also that he or she has covered,
Right.
right? So that person might, if let's say someone is a CEO in a company, right? So they might be very good at sales. Like I would say 90 99 out of 100 in sales, and then also they have sort of 50 or 60 in accounting. I would say 17 operations. So there's certain expertise in other fields
Fields
also.
as well. Hmm.
Yeah, and consulting sort of requires that kind of individuals who are well rounded,
Hmm.
who have,
Right.
because they get to work with different clients across different kind of verticals.
Hmm.
So maybe consulting would have appealed more to me, and I would have. But then again, I would have developed a specific line of expertise,
Hmm.
more expertise, like I said, like 99 or 100, and then I would have covered the broader scope.
Understood. And
Yeah.
that's a fair enough overview about what you would have chosen, right? Okay, so let's just understand that how a campaign is built, and what are the components of a successful marketing campaign, right? And how do you strategize upon it?
Got it. So since I've worked mostly in performance marketing as well as retention,
Mhm.
so I would like to restrict my campaign, like expertise, like in my answers in terms of those domains.
ठीक है.
But there are definitely wider areas to cover, right?
Right.
Because let's say someone who has worked in brand marketing,
Mhm.
that person might have a different sort of answer compared to someone who has done performance marketing,
Right.
or let's say social media marketing, like that. So when I look at campaign creation from a performance marketing point of view, so it again comes back to the basics of marketing, right? The four P's that we are taught: the product, price, place, and promotion. Like those principles don't actually change across domains. So first, we have to sort of understand the target market that we are trying to reach out, right? What kind of product, what kind of market your product fits well with what kind of audience. So first we need to, that is this whole process is also known as GTM, go to market strategy, right? So when you're trying to come up with a go-to-market strategy, first you have to come up with your audience. That what kind of demographic that you are trying to target, what kind of age or kind of city that you are trying to target, right? Then you basically define that what is the age range, what basically motivates these users, right? Let's say if I take my current example, right, that let's say someone is trying to do a flight booking, right? So what kind of users I would try to target or reach out to? Is it going to be pan India? What kind of age range usually does flight booking, right? And at what life stage they do a flight booking, right? Is it a very frequent use case or a very long-term use case, right? That once in 1 year they would do a flight booking, or once in a 6 month they would do. So once you have a clear answer about your demographic, that these are the kind of cohorts that you are trying to target, then you try to come up with the what portion, right? The who is done, now the what. Then you try to basically come up with the ad copies or the kind of communication that you tailor for each of your cohort, right? Let's say that if you are tailoring the content for someone who is between 18 to 22-year-old, that would be very different than someone who is in, let's say, 30 to 40 years of age, right? And they would vary in terms of income, in terms of the life stage they're in terms of their motivation of doing a flight booking, right? So that way that you tailor the content and communication around it. And then in terms of the price, that is kind of fixed, right? If your product is, let's say, having different price points, then you advertise certain kind of products to certain cohort, and others you tailor according, right? You won't try to sell too pricey products to someone who is 18 to 22 years, right? Compared to someone who is between 30 to 40, they're already doing well in life, they're kind of in a stable situation,
Right.
So that way you try to tailor the price point also, and finally, and also you give certain kind of discount to sort of bring the product price to that core, like similar what they can purchase, and then finally you promote your product across channels that they are presenting. So for example, let's say you're trying to reach out to users who are let's say Gen Z, right? So you would try to find the channels where the Gen Z are, right? You would maybe reach out to them maybe through some communities, right? There are certain communities that you have access to, and you are trying to advertise your product there, right? There are certain kind of communities online, Facebook communities, or any other new age social media that has come up, any kind of communities that are created. You try to reach out there,
Right.
or maybe you are trying to reach them out through Instagram. Facebook advertising, in my experience, for Gen Z, that might be kind of dead, right? Because that is having a kind of mature audience,
Right.
people like us, like who are already in their 30s or 40s. So you would try to reach them out through Facebook over there. But in terms of the Gen Z, you would maybe try out the new age kind of channels.
Right.
So that way you figure out your channels, and for the for the wider kind of audience, like people who are let's say millennials, or post 40 years of age, you would try to do more of TV advertising, or maybe newspaper, or kind of
Right.
ads over the blogs they're reading, or online newspaper. You try to put banners over there. So that's how the key is that you find your audience like where they are present.
Right.
It's not like a one size fit all solution, right? That you do a point blank Facebook marketing and you basically acquire your users from there. No, that has been dead for a long time. That used to be the strategy, but now things are very much personalized, and it's very key to basically think about your audience.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. And that's a fair enough overview about the whole thing, right? How to actually create a campaign, what are the components of a campaign, how to strategize for the campaign. And I'm really thankful that you actually answered the question in such a great way, right? The students are working.
And one last point, like since we are on this topic, one last point I can maybe add is that you also need to think about what motivates your cohort, right? Because the kind of motivation and ideology or the values that a certain cohort might have, that might be very different than the other cohorts, right? So let's say that you are having a certain kind of product. Let's say uh, any utility product, right? Let's say t-shirt brand. Okay. So the way you would advertise to Gen Zs, that would be very different than what you would advertise to the millennials or the other cohorts. Let's say you would say that it's recyclable, it's good for the planet, or let's say that it's very much trending. If they follow certain kind of cult or any kind of what say any kind of band, rock band that they're more prone to follow, or any K drama that they're following, you would maybe tailor your communication according to that.
Right.
Then what you would promote to the Gen Z, right? To the millennials.
Yes, yeah.
To millennials, you might try to highlight more towards the utility, that it's more comfortable to wear. During a long work hours, it's good for travel. When you are going international, it gives a good status according to that. So there are lots of filters that you can put to a cohort in terms of income group, in terms of age.
Right.
There are lots. Yeah.
Can't agree more to this point, because this is a very great takeaway, right? I believe the students, you noted this down, like जो भी लोग इसको देख रहे हैं this video को, right? Just note these pointers down if you're targeting such roles, because this is the gist of it, right? Just try to search accordingly. You got a rough draft, right? Now to gain more insights about how a campaign is built, you can search selectively, right? The terms that sir mentioned. Selective search करो, knowledge gain करो, and that's how you can actually polish the whole skill that you're trying to learn, right? That's a fair enough takeaway. Thank you for answering this way, right? Now, like there might be some unconventional marketing tactic that you would have always wanted to apply, right? But you never had a chance to implement it. So I would like to know that what that particular thing is, right? Any unconventional marketing tactic that you always wanted to apply.
Yeah. So one particularly interesting area that I wanted to explore was maybe metaverse marketing, right?
Okay.
So that is a very new concept that is coming from the Western world, right? So metaverse is a pretty new concept, and it is said that metaverse marketing might be the future after, let's say, 10 or 20 years, right? So that's one area that I wanted to focus on.
Right.
There are a lot of and it's currently being restricted only to the brands with deep pockets, right? Brands like Puma, Adidas, or the global brands, right? So there are a lot of international icons that that are also doing metaverse marketing. I was reading that there was some artists that had a metaverse concert, right? You could basically experience their concert over the metaverse. Right. So right now in India, the devices that basically host that are able to host the metaverse, that is very much less. Right, the penetration is very less due to the price point. It's very much pricier. If I'm not wrong, it's kind of around 50,000 or 1 lakh, upwards of that, or maybe 20,000. So, and also it's not India is very much price sensitive market, as well as very much utility oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people maybe are not finding enough value for the price they pay for, let's say, 20 or 50,000.
Understood.
So that's why the penetration is quite low over here. But that's not true for the other developed nations, right? Like US or Europe, the penetration could be higher. So that's one marketing area that is emerging gradually. And once the penetration increases in India, we all know that India is one of the biggest markets, right?
For sure.
So once the penetration goes above a certain threshold, the like it moves towards the early adopters and innovators.
Right.
Then I think the potential is immense because there is a lot of distribution channels that it can get distributed from.
Right.
There are like players like Apple and Facebook that are constantly doing R&D to bring the price down. So that's one area that can
Right.
that
Because
has my interest.
these companies are also investing heavily, like very heavily, in terms of
Yeah.
creating such products, and
Yeah.
there is no discussion about it because this is the
Yeah.
tech from the future itself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just think about it that you can basically sell your tickets or sell your products across the boundaries or across nations.
Right.
Like a Taylor Swift can host a concert across all across the world
Right.
just by sitting in the US. So and can sell tickets.
Right.
So, and the price of that ticket might be even lesser than a real like in a physical concert.
Right. And there might be virtual banners placed on some building that we could see in
Yeah, yeah.
reality,
Definitely.
and we
Yeah.
don't need to just go around anywhere, right? Just sit in the
Hmm.
balcony and just look at the building that is in front of you, and you'll have a screen in front
Yes.
of you, right? That
Yeah, yeah.
And like these things are so fascinating to actually talk about.
Yeah.
The industry,
And the potential for personalization is immense. over
immense,
there.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what the companies will be focusing on, because customization is the future, right? Like
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
will be personalized. As the trend
Yeah.
is changing, the market is also evolving towards customization and personalization, right? In the past
Yeah.
10 years, you would have also observed this thing, right? Ki how people are actually spending money to customize things, right?
Yeah.
To buy customized shoes, to buy customized clothing, to buy customized glasses, to any specific apparel, right?
Yeah.
Personalized gifts and everything, right? And
Yeah.
with the add-on of VR and AR to it, right, the things will totally change, right? And
Yeah.
whatever we could just imagine that will happen in future, it will be in front of us in few years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that's crazy to talk about, actually, because this thing has
Yeah.
always fascinated me a lot, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And we are already living in the world of personalization. But the personalization is only limited to what you are doing on that particular app,
Huh.
or whatever the third-party websites or browsers are collecting from you, right? But going forward, the data collection might become meta, right?
Right.
That it can collect your audio or video or any kind of speech, any kind of behavior that you do in the real world, the brand would be able to collect that data from, right? So the age of hyper personalization is actually coming, right? Where you and me, even if we are in the same custom audience, or even if we are in the same kind of age bracket, or we fall in the same cohort, right?
Right.
We would see a particularly different ad than what you are seeing.
Understood. And well, like, this sounds so unethical.
Yeah, and the cost of ad will also go down.
Right. Right, understood. All right. So, okay, in context of growth marketing, right? How do you
Yeah.
see the balance between human intuitions and data-driven decision evolving, right? Because this is what we are talking about, right? Because human-computer interaction is something that will actually, like actually increase a lot in future, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
creating any kind of a growth marketing strategy or implementing any kind of a strategy, right, you actually need to bring out that essence of the humankind in terms of implementation and thinking, right? And then like your decision is based on the data that you have collected. So how are both the things evolving, and how could we think that okay, any one of it will be replaced in the upcoming times, right? Because the tech is evolving so fast, like there are n number of changes happening in the market, right? So
Yeah.
like LLMs are also evolving so fast, so definitely human intuitions can be replaced somehow, because like the tech can get so advanced at some point of time where the common strategies could be automated, right? That edge could be found, right? And definitely things would be very different if we actually talk about the evolution of the tech in that particular speed, right, at which it is evolving right now, right? So what is your take on this?
So the answer partly lies in your question only, as you explained, the common the common strategies that can be easily replaced by the AI, right?
Right.
So the key is to become uncommon, right?
And
So, how however the AI develops its LLMs or the models kind of grow over time. The only things that are going to be replaced are the mediocre things that people do, right?
right.
Is the also only thing I believe that it's only the mediocre things that are going to be replaced, like as part of your job that you do. So you need to think really hard that what kind of mediocre things that you are doing in your job, and what is the extra edge that you are bringing to your job, right? So that is true for any kind of domain, work that you're doing, be it marketing, finance, or operations.
Definitely.
So if there is something that is very much mundane that anyone else can do, like let's say that I'm doing marketing and someone new has joined my team, and if I'm doing something, it can be 90% of my job or 80% of my work that very much mundane that can be given KT to, right? Like I can basically create a recording and that person just has to watch those KT recording and spend some time, let's say 1 month, and he or she can be equally as good as me. If that is the kind of work you are doing, then AI is sure to replace you over the years. But there are certain human attributes that are also very much unique to you, right? That you are, let's say that you have developed those skills over time, or let's say you are born with it, right? Like let's say you might be very good in analysis and logic, or you might be very good in observation, or you have very much very high empathy to empathize with your client, or in general empathize with people, right? Because no one is sort of born with this thought that I would grow up to become a marketer or something like that.
Right.
These are the attributes that you basically discover over time. So if you are like having some extra edge that no one is able to replicate, and that attribute makes you really good in your job,
Right.
then for sure that AI can't replace you, right?
Definitely.
Because what is AI? After all, like AI or these LLMs, these are all based on past data, right? Whatever has been done in this world till now, the LLMs or the AI, they basically analyze those patterns, they basically study that, and then recommend based on the current problem, right? So if you are someone like who is a very much out of the box thinker, so then you only answer, right, that how can the AI replace you, right?
Definitely.
Let's say that you have to come up with a sort of a metaverse marketing campaign, right? And that hasn't been done till now. There has been no resource around it. There has been no case study around metaverse marketing, or very much limited, right? And let's say that it has been only done for Puma or Adidas, or let's say Nike, right? So it's very much vertical specific, and you have to design a metaverse campaign for, let's say, a T-shirt brand, or a very much a travel category, or maybe a SaaS product, right? So even if the AI comes up with an answer, it won't be sufficient for you, right? You can't rely on that and execute a campaign only, right? So you need a human who sits on that chair, who basically comes up with a creative thought process and comes up with the campaign, and also finally executes it. So that is the key thing, that you have to be extraordinary in your job. You have to do something which is kind of extra, like whatever outside the job requires, and sort of become irreplaceable. That can't be someone new. You don't have to feel the threat always that someone new will come and you just give the KT to that person and you just get fired. Nothing like that.
Right. Actually, that's a very great answer as well. And a specific pointer that you mentioned, the empathy thing, right? So I recently just went across a video, right? I was scrolling YouTube, and I just went across a video where one of the YouTubers, right, that person made the ChatGPT audio version, right? When you can talk to ChatGPT, that is real time, right? So he just made ChatGPT mention that ChatGPT is a liar, right? And he just gaslighted AI, right? How? Because these LLMs are built in such a way that they lack empathy, right?
Yeah.
They can't actually talk honestly in that sense, because the thing is that if you will ask it to apologize, so it will say that okay, I'm apologizing, but it won't actually mean that think it is apologizing, right? That's not a real apology. It's just an apology in the sense कि ठीक है मैं बोल रहा हूँ इसलिए मैंने बोला कि आप माफी मांगो, वो माफी मांग रहे हैं, बट इट डजंट मीन कि हाँ वो सच्ची में माफी मांग रहे हैं, right? Because it lacks that empathy right there, right? And this thing is not this was one of the perspective that I saw in that particular video कि वो माफी मांग रहा है पर वो माफी सच्ची में नहीं मांग रहा है और उस चीज को कबूल भी रहा है कि आई एम नॉट like apologizing in the real sense, right? I'm apologizing because you're asking me to apologize, right? So that means that you're a liar, so it accepted that yes, I'm a liar, but I am apologizing because you asked me to do it, right? The thing is ki, like there are n number of other scenarios which can exist with the same kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about empathy, so humankind is something that is blessed with it, right?
Yeah.
हमारे पास है, बाकी जानवरों के पास, animals, they like every single living being has it, right?
Yeah.
So like this is something that AI like the models are not being trained in that sense अभी के लिए, right? I don't know
Yeah.
how would it go in future, but अभी they're lacking this instinct of honestly, you know, feeling the expressions, right?
Yeah.
Feeling the human like feeling those human feelings एक तरीके से, right? And that will like that is the future what most probably tech companies might be working upon. So
Yeah.
if that thing is incorporated, might like the case might revert, right? But
Yeah.
let's hope so. There might be some laws for AI as well in some time, right? And
So, like, I would like to add this at this point also that let's say that your worst fear comes true, right? That the AI, the GPT gradually evolves to become an AGM, right?
Right.
AGI,
Huh.
right? Artificial General Intelligence,
Huh.
and they basically transition to having human empathy and human-like attributes, right? Their thinking becomes more and more like human.
humans,
So, you know, right, that human beings are not without flaws, right?
right? Definitely.
The closer you tend to become more like human, you also have to adopt those flaws, right? You have to become vulnerable,
Right.
and the kind of thinking a machine is perfect, but a human is not,
Right.
right? So the kind of solutions a machine would again start giving, that will have its own flaws, right?
Right.
And then what a marketer was, then like what good will that replacement be?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally, I can totally agree to your point. And definitely things won't go like in the wrong way because like people have created a hype about it as well, right?
Yeah.
It is not something that we should be fearing about because
Yeah.
it is a very great opportunity, right? It's like AI is there to help us in easing our work, not to like take our work, as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If we can be like we are humans, right? We have an edge. Always we have
Yeah.
because the kind of thinking we can have, AI won't have it at any point in
Definitely.
life, right? Because
Yeah.
we are fast adapters, right? We can think out of the box quite easily, right? Matlab, it needs a lot of definitely it needs a lot of thinking, but we can come up with some idea for sure, right? That's
Yeah,
not an
yeah.
issue. So
And it also depends on like which person is training that model, right?
Yeah.
Let's say a business is trying to create its own AGI, or to keep it simpler, let's say sort of GPT, right? The business would basically train that model as per their own motivations or their metrics that they feel are important, right? It's not true that that would be very much empathetic to the customer also, right?
right.
So machine which is created by a business that will purely focus on the profits,
Right.
right?
For
So
sure.
it can't have strike a balance between both the customers and the business. So if there was a person in between, like why a human is required in certain kind of tool, because they have judgment, right, which a machine can't have. Or even if they have, it purely depends on the person who is training that model or machine,
Right.
So it's very much important that a human basically thinks in terms of human, that what is good for a human, and takes certain kind of decision, right? For example, Facebook has been having a lot of privacy concerns, right? So let's say that if there was any AI that was in charge of the legality, or in terms of the marketing department, heading the marketing department, so that AI would purely focus on the profits for Facebook, right? Compared to how much it's harming the humans,
Right.
compared to someone who is human, who is like who can take a better call that this can have a long term implication or something like that. So human actually prevents us like from becoming too much mechanical.
Understood. So like this is a fair enough overview and a good enough discussion about the certain topic, right? As well. So I
Yeah.
hope the students got a fair enough idea about how AI is being applied into certain job roles, right? About
Yeah.
marketing, about brand marketing, right? And let's just move to the next component, right? So, if you could only use a single marketing matrix, right, to measure success for the rest of your career, so what would it be, and why? Like, support your answer.
And you want me to answer in terms of only marketing metric or in terms of like any personal or business metric?
Let's just consider every single thing, right?
Okay. So if I were to talk about any kind of business metric that I were to judge myself on, it can be the amount of business value that I'm able to create.
Hmm.
Right. It's not just purely based on the revenue or the kind of number of customers that I have acquired,
Hmm.
but the overall business value that I was able to create, right? Because a person's contribution is much more than the revenue that person generates, right?
Right.
So it's the amount of business value for it. Like let's say that currently I'm working in travel company, right? Exio.
Hmm.
So it's not just the number of bookings that I was able to get. It's also the number of it's not just about the number of customers that I could acquire, but also how much customer delight I could create. How many customers actually found value in the product or service that I was able to sell
Hmm.
to them, right?
Hmm.
And how many of them came back and become repeat customers for me,
Understood.
right? So that these whole things, all these small parameters, they combine to become a business value,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And a business has a impact on the society as much as a person would have.
Right.
So how much goodwill that brand is having because of my campaigns, that is also a sort of parameter to think about. But of course these are parameters like you think about once you reach a mid-level position, right? These are not something that you have to start thinking right from the early start, but once you reach a certain middle or the leadership position, then you start considering these factors as well.
Understood. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's a perfect answer. Right. So, when we talk about marketing metrics, then
In terms of marketing metrics, I would then turn more capitalist, and I would maybe say that cost of customer acquisition,
Mhm.
because I believe that ROI comes with customer acquisition cost.
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
The lower your customer acquisition cost, the higher your ROI is anyways going to be.
Hmm.
So it depends again on business. Like
Right.
certain business will have higher cost customer acquisition cost than
Right.
other business. So it's that metric for me. CSE CAC.
Understood. So, how would you market a product, like in the world where privacy laws prevent data collection? Right. This is also a major issue, right? Data collection
Yeah,
is also prohibited.
definitely.
So,
And it's here already.
yeah. So, how would you market it?
That's actually an interesting question, and it's actually bothering a lot of marketers in the current world, right? Like, how are they going to market as they were able to do 2 3 years back, or maybe 5 years back, right? Because at that time, there were a lot of third-party cookies that if you are interested in performance marketing, so it majorly relies on third-party cookies, right? First party cookies has become more important over the current times, but the third party cookies, that would be critical factors for your campaign success, right? Because it's a business. So what is, let me first define what is first party and second and third party cookies, then
Right.
we can maybe go into the answer.
Right.
So first party cookie helps you uh, get the data from the customers that come to your platform,
Hmm.
right? So if someone has visited your website or app, and you show a certain permission to those users to collect their data, their contacts, and like, all other information, that is basically first party data: their email, phone number, their demographic information, their first name, and everything.
Hmm.
So that is first party data, and then second party data is like someone you bought any kind of data from, right? That let's say you have collected certain kind of lead.
Hmm.
You have basically bought certain kind of data from certain database, and you're running email marketing, right? So that is your second party data. And third party data is like let's say that you are running a Facebook campaign, right? Now, or any kind of like Google display campaign. So these social media platforms or any other these kind of media platforms, they own certain kind of inventory,
Hmm.
right? They have lots of third party websites which are listed on their platform. And if someone visits their these third party websites, these websites collect your data, and then Facebook basically uses that data to run campaigns for you, and then helps you acquire those customers, right? So that is all about the these. Now in recent times, since there are a lot of privacy concerns, right? Since Apple released its iOS 14.5, and in terms of Android also, it's also bringing new privacy restrictions where you can't collect data from third-party cookies. So in light of these things, like it becomes more important to rely more on your first-party data, right? So that's why brands are relying on new age techniques like creating communities, or for brands which have already acquired a lot of users, right? So they are trying to retain their customers, right? Instead of acquisition, they are focusing more on retention. So there are a lot of big brands which are already market leaders, so they are focusing more on retention through traditional marketing like email, WhatsApp, or SMS, those kind of channels, right? And for others, like the customer acquisition channels, like that becomes mostly restricted to communities. If they're able to host any kind of events in the real world that they're trying to do. And also these media platforms are also helping out to their models, right? That these have been collecting data for a long time. So based on that, they're able to create certain models that helps you identify users, right? That would be your ideal customer. So they are trying to run the campaigns around that also, right? So Google currently gives you option that you have a certain kind of AI model also, and also there is like you upload your first party data, right? So you combine both, and you basically can identify your ideal customer in this privacy centric world. So the landscape is continuously evolving, and as the challenges come up, the solutions also develop over time.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to add to it? You were saying.
No, I think that's all. Like brands are focusing more on the their brand image, their brand identity, so that customers come organically to them. And also SEO and ASO is gaining more prominence now, right? Because so that users are able to organically discover them,
Right.
right? And yeah, that's the way forward,
Right. Actually, yeah, like the last point that you mentioned, companies are actually focusing more upon the organic reach now, because I personally also believe that in organic campaigns, or the campaigns in which you spend money, right, to bring in people, those campaigns actually bring in temporary audience, right? It is very difficult to retain a comparatively larger number of people, right? And if people are discovering you on their own, right, organically, so the percentage of people who will be actually who will be actually sticking to your brand, or anything that you're selling, or any service that you're providing, will be a lot more higher, right? And that is where the companies can play a longer game, right, in the market. And the thing, this landscape is also changing now, because the boom in the organic marketing segment is also quite like prominently increasing in since past few years. Yep. And like that's something that actually fascinates me a lot when we talk about organic marketing campaigns or something like that, because I personally have been doing that, and like this thing is quite interesting to do, honestly, because it takes time, definitely, but the day like it starts skyrocketing, so it's exponential, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's crazy to actually just plan everything and implement everything, right? And see your strategy like playing around, and giving in results after the campaign is run for a few months, and that's really
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay, so like this question now is little bit more like personalized, right? In such a way that anything that would have interested you a lot, right? When you started learning more about marketing campaigns, or specifically marketing, right? So you would have read
Hmm.
multiple case studies, right? And try to learn more about these marketing campaigns while reading it
Hmm.
out or implementing it, right? So you would have searched like what are the best campaigns that people have already run in the market, right? What kind of result it generated, right? You would have done your research. So if you get a chance to actually go to the past, right, and actually consult on that specific marketing campaign that fascinates you like the most, right? So what changes would you want to do in it, right? And what advice would you give to them?
Frankly, most of the marketing case studies, those are quite old, right? Like they have been through 15 or 20 years back,
Hmm.
and the landscape has continuously evolved from that
Yeah.
stream, right? So those marketing case studies that we usually study or come across, right? Those are good for building your basics, but they are not very efficient to build your strategies in the current times, right?
Right.
So when I was like studying those case studies, like I just focused on the learning the marketing basics from that.
Right.
But when I started working, I could see there are a lot of new age marketing campaigns that are done. Like so, I think one thing that the one campaign that particularly fascinated me was the first time this GPT and discussion around GPT came up,
Hmm.
right? And this video generation using prompting,
Hmm.
that concept basically came up. So I think I don't recall the brand, but there was this international brand, right, that
Hmm.
did this campaign purely with video with AI,
Hmm.
right? So there was no production cost that was used in that. It was purely based on prompting, right? So, like the entire cinematography, from the start to end, that was done purely using prompt engineering.
Hmm.
So that particularly fascinated me, and that sort of indicated that has the potential for
Right.
larger growth, right? And there was another brand that started with this hyper personalization in the ad, right? That you can basically create your own Diwali wish,
Hmm.
based on your own attributes, right? Like let's say you are watching the ad from a certain city,
Hmm.
so the ad that would come to you, that is very much personalized to you compared to someone, let's say sitting in Chennai, or let's say Mumbai, right? So and it also depended on your age group, right? So that kind of hyper personalization was done in that ad, and it was a Diwali ad. I think it might have been Cadbury, I think. So that really fascinated me, and I started thinking more around the hyper personalization in the ads, because currently what you do is when you run ads, like
Hmm.
it's sort of a generic pages, right?
Hmm.
The videos or the images that you're running, that can be personalized to a certain limit.
Like, right.
Like
Hmm.
let's say that you are targeting a certain state or city, you can at the most target customize the language or the messaging in that ad copy, like that. But how about personalizing with your name, right? That the audio that is present in that video, that like reads out your name, it basically calls out to you. So that kind of ad has a better chance of converting than the current kind of creatives that we generate.
Hmm.
So I think the brands, the Facebook, Instagram, they are also investing a lot into hyper personalization of ads,
Hmm.
right? So that has been possible through the CRM platforms like YouTube. personalized based on name or any kind of event activity that they have done on the app. But when it truly touches the social media ads or any kind of brand marketing, then the real magic lies there.
Hmm. And yeah, that's also fair enough takeaway, right?
Yeah.
In the true sense, because that was a very great answer as well, right? And you give us a brief about how actually marketing campaigns are transforming, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like this is a good enough takeaway for the students who are watching this video, right? So, like, what is the most surprising lesson that you have learned in your career till this point, and that you believe that every marketer should know, right? And specifically for the students, any guide that you want to give them?
One particularly important lesson that I learned, gradually in my career is that you need to first focus on your hard skills, rather than your generic knowledge. Right? When you are starting out in your career, you should build one or two of your hard skills to basically succeed in your career. Right? Then basically you can create a well-rounded knowledge. So all the marketing lectures or whatever resources that are present online, right? They try to give you certain kind of a generic kind of a worldview, right? Let's say you're studying a certain kind of case study, right? So that will give you a sense around what kind of brand marketing that they did, or what kind of how they basically went on with their user survey. All those skills are good to have, right? You need to have understanding of that. But when you are actually starting out in the real world, and you are a fresher, or let's say that you are new in your career, right? You need to focus on certain hard skills in your team that basically adds up in your team. You need to think that how you're adding value to your team. So let's say that if you are really good in copywriting, right? So you need to be so expert in your copywriting that you are the go-to person in your team, right? And once you have built your expertise around copywriting, or let's say video editing, then you can build the other specializations as well gradually. And it's fine to be 50, 60 kind of in those domains. If you are, let's say, 90, 95, 99 in your own domain, right? So once you have built your specialization, and you have, let's say, spent around 5 to 10 years, then you can basically start looking at kind of a generic kind of skill set, right? So people usually make the mistake that they come to the role of the generic kind of a mindset that I will be doing all these, this, that, everything basically. But then they forget to basically focus on a certain kind of skill set that is actually required in the job.
Right.
So if you don't add value to your team, then you won't last long, and you won't have a career out of it. Right? So
This is a very valuable piece of advice, right? And like this is the best takeaway from this video, Vitak, right? Because this is what students should actually focus upon, honestly, right? If you're about to begin with your career in the industry, right? So just build a specific skill that you can be the master of, right? So that you have a specific role to talk about, right?
yeah.
Okay. Now we'll just kind of keep the session like a rapid fire round, right? So that we can just wind up it in a short span of time, right? There are 4 questions that I want to ask you, right? So just try to answer in a very compact way, right?
Yeah.
Which has a lot of accuracy and a lot of context, right? So, how do you think the concept of growth will change in the next decade, right? And will it always be about big numbers, or some new metrics will emerge in the market, right?
Yeah, the concept of growth is definitely going to change over the years, because till now, companies or startups that were formed, they basically focused on only the short-term goals, right? The revenue, or the number of transactions or acquisition they have done,
Right.
right? But gradually, the startup landscape is also changing, because people are focusing more on sustainability, and people are also focusing more on customer delight, and restricting any kind of misleading ads, right? So customer delight is also going to become big in the picture. What kind of impact you are having on the planet, that is also going to have a lot of importance, right? So ESG goals are actually going to become bigger, in the coming times in terms of growth. So with that, if you are charging a premium to your customer, if you are online with your ESG goals, but you are charging a certain premium that other brands in your space are not doing it, then I think customers would be happy to pay that,
Right, right.
right? Because today's generation is more conscious about the future
Right.
compared to the ages before that.
Right, right, right. Can't agree more to this point. Actually, this is how the whole landscape is, evolving, and that too very
Yeah.
fast. It is evolving, right?
Yeah.
So, like this is a scenario-based question. Just imagine if you had unlimited budget for a campaign, right? So, but the catch is that you can only use not, but you can only use non-traditional marketing channels, right? So convention channels you can't use, right?
Okay.
So, what would your approach be to actually create the campaign with unlimited budget, but no traditional marketing channels could be used?
Okay, so I'm going to assume few things here. I'm going to assume that Chat GPT becomes very big over the coming times, even bigger than Google, and they actually start monetizing it, right? They start recommending results based on what brands are spending on them. If it's going to become the default search engine, even bigger than Google, then maybe I can invest in ChatGPT marketing, right? I'm going to buy the language models, and it starts recommending my service or products so that customers basically come to my platform and buy it.
Like, what a crazy answer! I wasn't at all expecting this thing, but
Yeah.
honestly, mind blowing. Oh my
So
god!
it's not done yet. I don't know what their plans are, but if they start monetizing it, yeah, that would be great.
But just imagine about it, how crazy it will be. Like if this thing comes to reality, right? And
Yeah.
ChatGPT becomes the search engine that everyone starts using, right? And it
Hmm.
starts recommending you the products, the results, the news, and everything. Oh my god!
Not just ChatGPT. I mean, this thing is also starting to come up that influencers. There is a lot of AI-made influencers that are coming up, right?
Right, right, right.
So let's say that you train a certain model in a certain way. Let's say that you pay the creator that the influencer talks about my product and services, and you buy sort of models all around you that are surrounding your teaching.
Huh.
So that way the results are going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely, because it will save a lot of time.
Yeah,
Specifically because you don't need to wait for the influencer to create the video and everything, right? It's just done in a
yeah,
single
yeah,
prompt. You just give the transcript and whole video is done, right? And you
yeah,
start posting, you start influencing people. People are
yeah.
following you because you have a presence, you are talking, right? And like it's
Hmm.
difficult to identify if that particular influencer is actually a being or it is AI generated, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's that. Like this was a crazy answer, honestly. Like this is one of the best answers that, like, I honestly wasn't expecting this, right? I'll tell you that. My god. All right. So what role do you think storytelling plays in future of marketing? Right. I would call it story selling specifically, right?
Hmm.
And like especially as consumers have become more skeptical because there are a number of scams happening in the market, right? Skeptical of traditional advertising, so people are not actually focusing more upon the traditional ads, and they're not even watching it nowadays, right? Because
Hmm.
like the whole media is shifting towards OTT, towards social media, right? And people are not personally watching televisions now, specifically
Hmm.
our generation, right? We are more
Yeah,
inclined towards YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, right? Any other social
yeah.
media platform, OTT platforms, and that's where we're investing our time, right? But so how do you think that story selling or storytelling plays the role in terms of marketing in future?
I would just give you a context. So few days back I was watching this lecture by Seth Godin, right? Who is the one of best-selling authors of marketing and father of modern marketing. So he was explaining this concept where you're selling your story, right? Where you basically create a brand story, and that would sell the brand to the customers, right? So what is story selling? That is basically something that you create a story that how your brand came up from the scratch, right? You basically identify your target consumers, what is their pain point, and you find the motivation, like where they are and where they want to go, right? and how they are going to go, that your brand tells. Right, your brand is going to tell how these customers are going to reach where they want to go, and you basically sell that story to those customers, and if they believe in your story, then they buy into your product and services. They are okay to pay a value premium on that. Right?
Right.
And in today's time, story becomes more critical because there is a lot of clutter, right? There are a lot of competitors in a certain kind of vertical, right? So if you are having, let's say there are 3, 4 brands, or let's say 10 brands are there, and they're all competing on the price point. They're all trying to say that I am offering the lowest price, I am offering the best discount, like that. And then there comes you, right, who comes with a great story that your audience connects with. That helps break the clutter,
Right.
and then there is a lot of virality around your story, right? That each of your campaign basically talks about. So if that helps break the clutter, then your audience would by default come to you, right? And they are also okay paying a premium over the other competitors, even if they are paying, playing on price.
Right.
Because I think I recall that both co-founder, founder, sorry, Aman Gupta had once told that you should never play on price, right? If you're playing on price, then you would soon get wiped out of the market till a bigger player comes in.
Right. Exactly.
With someone with deeper pockets might come in, or let's say Amazon enters your space, then what will you do?
Right.
So story plays a great role in that, and it helps bring build more genuinity. And with today's generation, I think story helps connect more with them, right?
Right.
Compared to a mindless advertisements. Right?
Exactly.
So Zomato, I think that's one brand I follow a lot. They are very good with storytelling or the kind of creative ads that they make. Rather, Swiggy is also doing good. They came up with a recent ad, right, which combines all the influencers that we sometimes make fun of.
Right.
So they are trying to position themselves as quirky and fun.
Right. Also, if you would have just watched that particular social media post that Zomato and Swiggy, so Zomato and Blinkit combined, they just collaborated and posted, right? About Raksha Bandhan, if you would have seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Like, it was honestly delivering such a cute message, but in such a funny way, right? So it is creating a crazy impression in the person's mind who is watching that particular video, right? That okay, this is a modern brand. They're talking sense. They're relating, right? They're relating to the whole scenario that we also feel, right? And they're I believe that the only like the most important component of the whole social media thing is that relatability is the factor. Like only relatability is the factor. If you can create that relatability, right? If you can resemble to the idea, right? If people can understand what you're trying to relate to, right? Then definitely that thing is viral, right? And this thing is not specific to only social media, but to any kind of a content that you're creating, right? And that's I believe the most is the most important thing. That is one of the most necessary key pointers related to marketing your specific content, right? And the companies like Zomato, Swiggy, right? These companies are focusing like majorly upon relatability itself, right? And that's why they're going so viral. Like that's another thing, because the marketing team is actually creating something that is more relatable, right? You would have seen those hoardings, चाय पियोगे, राइट है ना, आज खाना खाया तुमने, है ना, चलो पोहा खिलाता हूँ, ऐसे मतलब दे आर डूइंग दिस थिंग्स, राइट? और ये सब चीजें रिलेट करती हैं, फनी लगता है देखने में, तो लोग रिटेन करते हैं, राइट? And that's how they're differentiating the whole landscape of advertising, the whole landscape of marketing, creating a brand impression, creating a story, right? And this thing is actually thought provoking, right? Like people who are aspiring marketing, people who want to enter into the industry, right? You should at least be updated about these basic things, right? Because if you learn through case studies, okay, it will give you a basic, as you already mentioned, right? In the earlier answer, it will give you a basic about business, right? It will give you a basic about marketing. But if you actually want to learn the practical application of that particular strategy, then you need to observe brands that are actually implementing those strategies in real time. Right.
And to tell you honestly, like most of the case studies are, based on other countries, right? They come from the Harvard case studies like that. Right. So the context is missing there. Right. Whatever like applies to Indian customers, that can't be completely taught by the Western case studies. Right? So it's
100%.
very important to observe the Indian brands and also Western brands how they're trying to customize in the Indian
Indian
market.
market, yeah.
So that is very much needed.
Yeah, like there is also an example of that particular car brand. I forgot the name. Like it's an inverted C kind of a logo.
Inverted C.
What's the name? Right? They thought that okay, they'll launch. अभी उन्होंने ये टाटा कर्व का कंपटीशन लॉन्च कराया मार्केट में, राइट?
Okay.
तो व्हाट ब्रांड मैं पढ़ रहा था इस ब्रांड के बारे में ऑनेस्टली जब एंटर्ड इंडिया यूएस बेस्ड कंपनी है, राइट? ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर में ही है. दे एंटर्ड द इंडियन मार्केट. दे थॉट कि जैसे जैसे बुगाटी जैसे लैम्बोर्गिनी करते हैं ना कि दे डोंट क्रिएट एड्स, right? They are just targeting those people who are not wasting their time on television, right? Because they know कि ठीक है जिसके पास पैसा है जो कि मेरा प्रोडक्ट खरीदेगा वो टीवी पे तो नहीं बैठा होगा, right? यहाँ पे बैठे होंगे उनके लिए अलग उनका चैनल है टू सेल, right? Now the brand thought कि ठीक है इंडिया में भी ना ऐसे करते हैं, हम मार्केट हम अपना ऐड नहीं बनाएंगे, right? And the brand in overconfidence failed miserably, right? Initially मतलब नहीं हुआ सेल्स, लॉसेस बने बहुत सारे. Now
Because they were not able to sell.
हाँ, they were not able to sell क्योंकि वो ब्रांड रिजेम्बलेंस ही नहीं बना पाए ना. उनको लगा कि मतलब इंडिया में क्या है कि फॉरेन का कोई प्रोडक्ट आया तो बहुत अच्छा प्रोडक्ट है चल जाएगा मार्केट में, राइट? होता ही वाला एक आइडियोलॉजी क्रिएट करके रखते हैं, है ना, फॉरेन जो ब्रांड्स होते हैं. बट दी ब्रांड थॉट कि ठीक है if you are launching a कार तो हो सकता है हमारा नाम चल जाएगा, राइट? एंड थिंग्स हैपन दैट वे, है ना. वो नेशनल जो अपना आर्केटाइप की बेसिस पे दे स्टार्टेड मार्केटिंग द थिंग, राइट? व्हाट्सएवर चैनल दे यूज दे डिडंट क्रिएट एड्स, राइट? और हुआ ये कि लाइक दे डिडंट सेल एनी, लाइक दे डिडंट सेल बहुत मेजर कोई नंबर्स, कुछ नहीं, ज्यादा कुछ प्रॉफिट नहीं हुआ, लॉसेस ही हुए, राइट? नाउ व्हाट दे डिड, नाउ दे चेंज द होल स्ट्रैटेजी, दे रीस्ट्रक्चर्ड द होल स्ट्रैटेजी. नाउ दे स्टार्टेड क्रिएटिंग रिजेम्बलेंस, राइट? नाउ दे स्टार्टेड कटिंग द प्राइसेस टू कम्पीट इन द मार्केट. एंड दैट टू कटिंग द प्राइसेस 50% से भी कम अपने कॉम्पिटिटर जो वो है व्हीकल्स है उन सबसे, राइट? आई वोंट शेयर द नेम, मतलब मेरे को याद भी नहीं, सही बताऊं तो मैं आपको बाद में बताऊंगा अगर इफ वी हैव अ कन्वर्सेशन अबाउट इट. बट लाइक दैट्स एन इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी टू लिसन टू. मतलब यूट्यूब पे मिल जाएगा, सर्च करोगे तो, right?
I think that is if you are trying to cut the price, that is like digging more into your greed, right? If you are targeting a luxury market,
Right, exactly. Now they
luxury brands never give discount. Be it luxury hotels or clothing brand, they never give discount.
मतलब इनिशियली वो लग्जरी के तौर पे आना चाह रहे थे, बट अब वो सस्टेनेबिलिटी पे जा रहे हैं कि वो अपना ब्रांड को कैसे मतलब दे आर कम्पीटिंग द मोर इकोनॉमी क्लास वाला जो साइड है, राइट? कि दे आर प्रोड्यूसिंग मोर इकोनॉमिकल व्हीकल्स. तो
Until some new brand buys them and completely disrupts them.
Right, and like this was an interesting thing that I was learning about. Matlab, actually reading about these modern cases, the strategies that are being implemented, these things are actually quite interesting to always hear to, है ना? आता रहता है, सुनने में मजा आता है, because that's how you are actually working in the industry. And if you're a person who is aspiring to become a marketer, and if you don't find these things interesting, then definitely there is some loop in the whole thing. Because अगर आपका इंटरेस्ट ही नहीं बनता ये सब चीजें जानने में, तो you need to actually reanalyze कि आप करना क्या चाहते हो लाइफ में. Because marketing is not the thing if you are not interested in knowing about these things, right? एज अ स्टूडेंट मतलब ऐसा होता है ना कि आप जब करियर पाथ चूज कर रहे हो तो आपको पता ही नहीं होता कि आपको करना क्या इनिशियली, किसी को नहीं पता होता, राइट? यू आर जस्ट गोइंग विद द फ्लो. बट कुछ ऐसा 10% फैक्टर होना चाहिए जो कि आपको इंटरेस्ट प्रोवोक करा दे उस चीज में, राइट? एंड इफ यू कैन एक्चुअली फाइंड दिस थिंग, फिगर इट आउट इन योर पर्सनल जर्नी, तब तो उससे बेटर कुछ है नहीं, राइट? एंड इफ दिस पॉडकास्ट इज ऑल अबाउट मार्केटिंग हियर, राइट? वी हैव डिस्कस्ड अ लॉट अबाउट ब्रांड मार्केटिंग, ग्रोथ मार्केटिंग, about performance marketing, right? And a number of things, right? But the thing is that if you could actually relate to the whole journey that sir has shared in terms of his experience and his answers, right? And also in terms of the topics that we have tried to discuss here, right? These are not conventionally something that you hear in a podcast, right? Like this is more of thinking based questions that we have answered here, right? So specifically if a student wants to know how the industry is operating, how brand marketing, how brand strategy is working, right? What might be the future perspective of the thing, the marketing industry, right? How the whole landscape is transforming in terms of AI being implemented into marketing, right? Or the impact that story selling is creating in the consumer's mind, right? or about like the campaign structure, how campaigns are created, right? So this podcast would have been a gold mine for you till this point, right? If you could actually relate to the things that we have talked about, right? And if you are actually targeting marketing and you're not able to actually resemble to these things, then I believe you need to do some self analysis again, right? Because this is the point where you shouldn't lie to yourself, right? Because lying to yourself is the biggest blunder that you can make in your life, right? So sir, any of the last words that you would like to share in this podcast, any guides for the students, right? Students who are about to enter into the industry or anything from your side, because it is not possible to cover up everything in a single podcast, right? So yeah, anything from your side.
So my last point would be, connected to what you just mentioned, that if you're not finding it interesting, till now, if you're not allured by the different marketing case studies, then maybe marketing is not for you. And maybe a lot of the students, they get into roles where they don't find interesting, right? And that is perfectly fine, right? It could have been very much the case that I didn't find my interest in digital marketing, that I accidentally got into, right? And that is true for most of the MBA graduates, or any graduates, right? So the first 5 years, I feel that is that should be for exploring where your passion lies, and to do different kind of workflows, right? I personally know many folks like who got into a certain kind of role. They started doing different kind of things, right? They got into a marketing role or a growth profile. They started doing n number of things that came to them. They started doing brand marketing. They got involved in brand marketing campaigns. They started getting involved in the operations, right? In the distribution. They literally went to the workshops, and they went to the factories to find out how the product is getting unloaded and getting distributed in the city. They went on on work trips to basically find out and talk to their customers to find out more like how their product is getting sold. So by doing different kind of, and these things didn't require them to do, right? These were not part of their JD, but still, since they were fresher, they were full of energy. They started doing these things, and that's how they discovered their passion. That maybe okay, product manager might be the role for me. I'm good with tech. They have worked so much on the integration side that they started discovering that product manager is their go-to role, instead of maybe digital marketing, or maybe operations is the go-to for me, right? So they become very good at that.
Right.
So it's like you should explore in the first 5 years, and then find your niche, and then start working on that, and then build a generalist view over the 5 to 10 years horizon, 5 to 15 years. That's how you should look at it.
That's a fair enough takeaway. And honestly, sir, I can't thank you more, because you have contributed so much to this podcast, right? You have shared so many insights for the students. This is honestly a gold mine that you have delivered, with the answers that you have mentioned, right? And
Thanks to the questions that you asked, those have been very interesting.
actually, the thing is that I honestly think that the students who have watched this podcast seriously, right, and you have noted down things that actually made sense to you, right, and now if you just search about it further after you are done watching this podcast, right, so I believe you'll gain a lot, राइट मतलब जहाँ पे भी यू थॉट कि ठीक है इस चीज के बारे में मेरे को जानना है, यू जस्ट राइट इट डाउन ऑन अ नोटपैड, राइट, एंड दैट्स हाउ यू शुड एक्चुअली वॉच दिस काइंड ऑफ वीडियोस, राइट, बिकॉज इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू रिटेन एवरी सिंगल थिंग जो कि आप 1-1.5 घंटे में सुनोगे, बट इट इज इजियर टू सर्च अबाउट इट व्हेन यू राइट इट डाउन, राइट. And I believe the students, sir, whatever you have delivered till this point for the students, right, for the people who are market enthusiasts might be the right word, right? So definitely they would have gained a lot from this video, and like it all goes to you, all thanks goes to you, right? And I believe I can't actually thank you more for this thing, right? Thank you for investing your time here, right?
And I would just like to add that if someone has any questions or any queries, or if they want to provide any clarification, I can't be correct about all the things. So if someone wants to provide any clarification about certain thing, that okay sir, might have told something like this is not the case, right? the contrary case can also be there. So they can always, comment on the video, and they can basically reach out to me over LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm very much active over
Yeah.
LinkedIn, so you can always DM.
I'll share his LinkedIn ID link in the description as well. And above his video, you can also, see his name that is mentioned on his LinkedIn profile, right? So you can also search from here, or you can just click on the link in the description, right? So that you can reach out to him, right? I would just request one thing, that don't bulk message him, in the sense that, okay, it gets difficult for him to manage the whole thing, right? Just ask relevant questions, whatever doubts you have, right? Just go for genuine guidance, right? As simple as
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Don't disturb him if you don't have any genuine question, right? Because like this might be the case that you start receiving thousands of DMs in a day, right? And then it will get difficult for you to actually manage the whole thing, right? And
I'm still waiting for that day.
that day will happen for sure. That day will come. Yeah, and we'll make it a reality. Right. And I believe, thank you for investing so much of your time. Thank you for coming to the podcast. And we'll be looking forward to having more sessions like these for the students, right? When we move to the live session thing that we are planning out for the channel, right?
And thanks a lot for inviting me to your podcast. I mean, as I told at the start, that this is my first podcast ever. So thanks for making it so pleasant and so easy going. It has been such a easy going conversation. You actually posed questions that were very much thought provoking, that I have never faced from anyone. So the questions have been really key to me coming up with the answers.
Thank you for the compliment. And I believe,
I hope your podcast also grows 1,000 times.
thank you so much, right? So this is all from our side, people. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I believe you gained a lot of insights from this video. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.